Good day, everybody. Well, it's that time of year again. It's time for you to vote for your favorite, well, not vote, but nominate your favorite furry content of 2024. That's right, the Ursa Majors is open for nomination, and will be open for nomination until the end of the month. This year there are 16 categories to go over. Basically, if you go to the Ursa, if you search Ursa Major Awards, you should be able to find their website. Basically, you can nominate 5 items in each of the categories if you want. You can skip categories if you're not too familiar with those categories. You can vote for or you could add nominations for motion picture, dramatic short work, dramatic series, novel, short fiction, other literary work, nonfiction, graphic story, comic strip, magazine, published illustration, game, website, costume, and music. So those are the categories that are open for nomination. So if you had anything that you really liked last year that was published last year about furry or animals, or if the content was created or it contains funny animals or anther animals, feel free to nominate. It does look like the music category is back for now. Last year they had an issue with that. A lot of stress last year for sure over that. We did a video on that particular situation. Hopefully it'll remain calmer this year and with a lot less drama. Because we don't need to make music dramatic shorts. We already got 2 dramatic categories. We don't need another one. Anyways, there's a recommended anthropomorphic list also on the site that'll tell you that'll give you recommendations on things that were found this year that people put on the list. And if you want to, just take a quick look at those and nominate those based on those, feel free. But obviously, if it's not on the recommended list, you can nominate it anyway, just in case it was a blind spot in things. I think my favorite furry music from 2023 was not on the recommended anthropomorphic list. It was by the same artist. It was released on the same year as the one that was thrown on the recommendations list, but I think there was another one of their songs that I liked a lot more and was probably my favorite for the year. But we didn't do a music category last year, so anyway, that was the thing. So I'll say this. Obviously there's nonfiction. The nonfiction category is there. So if you liked any one of my works, you could feel free to nominate. Or if you liked any other person's works from Flera, I should probably go back and review some of the nonfiction work that was done over the past things and look at the recommended list to give myself a recollection. I also have a spreadsheet somewhere that has a handful that I forget to update about halfway through the year. But basically, there was one I'll probably recommend. It might have been released this year, but there was one article that I really liked recently that was done by another person who's a new author at Flavor, and it's good to see new authorship come in. I think it was in December that they had published it. Mr. Tanuki had published an article for Flera, and we're going to cover that in the next video, what they covered, because I was going to cover it, but obviously the end of the year became really hectic and couldn't get my head around anything, and so kind of glad that they stepped in and were able to provide that, and they did a really good job, probably better than I would have done, so very happy about it. We'll cover that next time. But on the last thing here on the Ursa Majors, how you do is you're going to enroll and then you're going to log in and then basically enter your 5 nominations. The system is showing its age, and also there was an issue that was probably going to be a bigger part of this story, but fortunately for us became a lesser part as it seems to have been resolved, but I will bring attention to it nonetheless. Basically, the ALAA, basically the people who oversee the Ursa Majors, is looking for someone to take over responsibilities for the website maintenance and social media. It's like, we need new technology for the future voting of the winners as our old software is becoming obsolete. If we do not get this soon, there will be no Ursa Majors anymore. So, and that was released on the 2nd, on Groundhog's Day. Luckily, the Bear Shot Shadow, and we have at least 6 more weeks of Ursa. We have at least 6 more months of Ursa. So basically, there was a person who stepped in, according to Goldford down here, that the ALLA has accepted an offer to take on the responsibilities. Hopefully, that person does well. And it just kind of highlights that it really is important that as much as time and comps is hard to come by these days. Time is of like a very high premium these days, within inflation continuing to chomp at people and people working harder and harder for less and less these days. It can seem a little irksome to have to volunteer, or to be to volunteer and take precious time and doing that, but I think it gives you it does give you good experience, as it were. And also, volunteering at least one thing in your life is always a good thing. But you can only go so far. I appreciate that, like, somebody had DM'd me about the situation, and also it's like, do I or have time to do it, or do I know anyone who has time to do it? Unfortunately, I didn't know anyone directly. Luckily, they didn't need that. I did retweet it, obviously, or they are on Twitter still, which is probably part of their problem. They are trying to move over to Blue Sky. Basically, trying to make sure that, things keep rolling and things keep moving. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of volunteer work, and so, given that I volunteer for Flera, and sort of this these little video blogs are also sort of volunteer. And on top of that, my work hours are increasing every week to be like 60 plus hours of work. I really don't have much time for any more volunteers, and I think and the reason I think that's important to understand that, like, if you are a person who wants to volunteer, know your limits and try to work within those limits. Because I think one of the big reasons that Ursa's had an issue with the volunteer pool that they have is because the volunteer pool that they have volunteer for a bunch of other things for the fandom. They're very prolific. I know Peter Cat is one of the people who is on the ALAA, I believe. And Peter Cat is like head of programming for I think Anthrocon, and like he's like also head of staging and things like that. So he already volunteers a lot of his time for the fandom, and also probably has a better idea about things, even though he probably finds the arts and the things interesting and wants to help promote them and wants to help promote it through the Ursa Majors. He probably does better in the physical space than in the digital space, because that's why they need somebody who's decent at technology to maintain it. It's one of those things where if you're spinning too many plates, you may end up doing more harm than good to an organization, or more harm than good, or you have to start picking your battles. And it sounded like the people in the ALAA here were about to say, well, is the Ursa Majors even worth it anymore? And they were about to say no until somebody stepped in, thankfully. I think it's worth it. Even though I've had my criticisms of the voting system, I think it's an important talking point. I think it's important to review the content that's created by furries and furry content in general over the past year, because like that's what we're here for, right? Furry content. That's what we're here for. All the content. So like, paying homage to it, I think, is very important. I think there will always be people who do that. I think that, I have my critiques about like the voting systems and like how and democratized ideas of content. Sometimes the most popular thing isn't always the best thing. But that's something that time will tell. And, something can't be the underdog or the cult classic if there's no like popular opinion. Like it has to run counter to popular. So having a popular based award is fine. Um, to me, it's like, even though it's like who wins it is not as important to me. I always think it's great that it forces me to kind of think, it's like, hey, what kind of furry content have I missed out on over the past year while I was too busy with things? Take the time to do that. And then in that light, I usually do an article about the short dramatic works, and we are definitely going to be doing that article again this year. It'll probably be the end of this upcoming weekend. I will post what I feel the top 11 dramatic short / animation / things for my take on the Ursas. Obviously, the top 5 I would be nominating, but I go into more because I think that it gives people a bigger pool to work from. I've noticed that this year was a lot of killer, no filler, as kind of a spoiler. There was a lot of good content. Like only one of them kind of had issues with like the sound or the voice acting and the mixing, and I felt like the animation was kind of a little bit rough around the edges. Basically, there was only one that I rated lower than a 4, and that's very rare. And I think that's kind of cool that the quality is improved on the recommended list every year, and it seems to get better every year. But I also kind of like missed the oh gosh, what was that I just watched, or like oh man, this is pretty gnarly. Like they tried their dangdest, and I can see how they tried their dangdest. It's like I do miss the sort of a little bit more amateur sort of style of animation, a little bit. It kind of, because it kind of throws a wrench into the whole thing. It kind of is like it's like you watch a lot of good content and you can take it for granted, and then you see the one person who's really like, oh, they tried really hard, and they didn't make it, but it's like you could see like the process and the flaws in the process, and I kind of miss that a little bit this year when I was reviewing these. Now I don't want it to go all the way back to the one I had an issue with a long time ago, which was the one that was basically like a picture and like a song, and that being considered a dramatic short work. I don't want it to go that far, but a little rough. I like a little bit of roughness. That's like is appreciated. Anyways, we'll cover that in the article, I guess. But anyways, be sure to nominate, and hopefully you find good content this year. And if you want to nominate one of my things, that's great. If you want to nominate somebody else's things, even better. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.